Hello and welcome to Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast. I am Sir Matt, the Bud Knight.
And I am Sir Ezra the Watchful. Welcome to Follow Up Friday. We've got a jam-packed show for you this week. It is July 27th, and we are ready to rock and roll here, my friend.
All right, let's go ahead and jump into it. The trivia winner, once again, Lady Lauren.
Wow.
Trivia question was, what is the name of a true Ironborn wife? Kind of a trick, because the week before we asked Wildling, Spear Wife. A lot of people might have said, oh, Salt Wife.
Yep.
Answer is actually Rock Wife.
Rock Wife it is. Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Okay, that was good. So Lady Lauren, I need to update that. That's is it 2 or 3 for her?
That's 2 in a row, 3 total.
Yeah.
Which I think ties her.
She's moving up there. Yeah. Up the leaderboard. So
maybe not.
Real
Somebody may have 4 or 5. Anyway, she's moving on up.
But she's up there. I don't think she's...
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
To the Essos side, I should say.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Okay, cool beans. So stay tuned later on the show. We'll have the trivia question and, send those.
It's a good one this week.
It's a good one. I like it.
It's tough.
Pretty good. We had this week sort of a, what would you call this, Sir Matt?
A crow.
A crow. Okay. It wasn't a raven. It was a dirty old crow.
It was a dirty old crow. Here's the thing.
Go ahead.
I'll say this is that we are always open to criticism of the show.
Sure.
But only when that criticism comes towards us.
Yeah.
We are the lords of the show. So the criticisms, if you criticize us, if we get something incorrect,
let us know. We said that.
Let us know. We've encouraged that. But when you criticize other people's ravens, as far as I'm concerned, there's no such thing as a bad question or a bad raven. And we're here to entertain them all, because you never know. Maybe that's just what we do.
Yeah, it is what we do.
It's a free folk podcast.
It is. And here's the thing. If you look at the text and you look at what we have in A Song of Ice and Fire, Eddard Stark himself, valued, everyone's opinions. Do you care if I go ahead and read? Do you want to read this, Sir Matt?
Go ahead and read it. It actually,
this is from
funny
this week's...
thing is actually, I was remembering this quote exactly. I'm like, oh yeah, it's also from this week. So kind of a great setup here.
Yeah. So this is an Arya 2.
Arya's talking about, she's reminiscing of Winterfell.
Yeah.
After he was gone, Sansa exchanged whispers with Jane Poole. Down at the table, Jory laughed at a joke, and Hullen started in about horseflesh. You're a warhorse now. He may not be the best one for a joust. Not the same thing. Oh no, not the same thing at all. The men had heard it all before. Desmond, Jax, and Hullen's son Harwin shouted him down together, and Porther called for more wine. No one talked to Arya. She didn't care. She liked it that way. She would have eaten her meals alone in her bedchamber if they let her. Sometimes they did. When father had to dine with the king or some lord of the envoys from this place or that place. The rest of the time they ate in his solar. Just him and her and Sansa. That was when Arya missed her brothers most. She wanted to tease Bran and play with baby Rickon and have Robb smile at her. She wanted Jon to muss up her hair and call her little sister and finish her sentences with her, but all of them were gone. She had no one left but Sansa, and Sansa wouldn't even talk to her unless father made her. Back at Winterfell, they had eaten in the Great Hall almost half the time. Her father used to say that a lord needed to eat with his men if he hoped to keep them.
No, wait, say that one more time.
Her father used to say that a lord needed to eat with his men if he hoped to keep them.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Know the men who follow you, she heard him tell Robb once, and let them know you. Do not ask men to die for a stranger. At Winterfell, he had always an extra seat at his own table, and every day a different man would be asked to join him. One night it would be Van Poole, and the talk would be coppers and bread stores and servants. The next it would be Mikken, and her father would listen to him go on about armor and swords and how hot a forge should be and the best way to temper steel. Another day it might be Hullen with endless horse talk, or Septon Chael from the library, or Jory or Sir Roderick, or even old Nan with her stories.
Even old Nan with her stories.
Yeah.
It's important to remind the realm.
Yeah.
That even Eddard would listen he found value in listening
Absolutely.
to everyone, who played a role in his, in Winterfell, even in Old Dan's stories, So just a reminder to the realm that when you send us a Raven, we know you put in a lot of effort, and we appreciate you guys putting in all the effort that you do to look stuff up, to have theories, to kind of put it out there. Sometimes it is, we
have a Raven today that when sometimes
I know.
Sometimes you first look at it, you're like, I don't know. I don't think it. But then you start reading it and you're like, okay, maybe that's the thing. And we say something, and sometimes people will say, we get these Ravens. I don't know about that whole segment you made, but what you said here really caught my eye.
Yeah, they might the whole theory,
one piece of it. Like, okay, hold on a second. I can see that, and that may open up a theory about something else. That's the whole thing. It's all just speculation.
Yeah, it is. It is. So just a reminder, please keep sending those, and don't worry about, just know that on this podcast, okay, people bend the knee. Yeah. All right, so we will read those Ravens, and we are happy to do so. Anything else on that? Oh, actually, I think one of the reasons we wanted to bring this up, we're over 200 likes in Facebook. Happened pretty quick. We're pretty happy about that, and we are going to start the group on there very soon, probably next week. Sir Ezra is actually moving, kind of moving.
Sir Matt's moving across the country in a couple weeks, so we're kind of.
So we'll try to, in the midst of all that, get the Facebook group going. But remember, reward positivity with positivity.
Absolutely.
And it's all there to stimulate conversation. We want to hear your thoughts, and we don't want people to be afraid of posting something, because a lot of people come in and they are more show heavy, and maybe they have some ideas that are just show, and that's fine. Just tag it. This is a show theory. Those are great. I mean, those are actually super funny. You can run wild with those theories. So,
because what else we don't know is, think about this, is we don't know the upcoming prequel show. What if the upcoming prequel show is just canon? Gur says it's canon. But what if it ties into things, what if it does something that alludes to something that happens only in the show?
Yeah.
Then that causes us to question things.
Yeah, I mean, the show is so popular and it's doing so well. I kind of think
it's kind of like if you look at Harry Potter, the Fantastic Beasts. I believe she said, it's all canon.
Yeah, because she hasn't written.
She's not writing books about it. She's we're just doing movies.
If Gur were to go back and write something about the Dawn Age and Age of Heroes, that's different. It trumps it. But for now, what he has written is there, and it's super vague.
Yeah,
and that's the whole point.
So the show may be
but that gives value to the show, right?
Absolutely,
definitely. I mean, that's why it gives it more validity, and people are going to run wild with it. So we're excited for that. So just know, as we start that group, I mean, we'll probably hit up some of our. You know what we did, Sir Matt? We called the banners. We had this crow. We had this, and so we reached out to people, and we just wanted everyone to know that.
And may have been a test to see. Oh, hey, maybe we'd like you to be a moderator.
Yeah, exactly. We've got some good people out there who are really positive.
We've had some people even offer. So.
Yeah, for sure. So, anyways, just throwing that out there. Okay, my friend. I think that's all I have to say there. The Dragon Egg Contest. So, last week we were talking about having the hidden phrase, thick as a castle wall. We got a few more people entered, and we're thinking this will air Friday morning at 6 o'clock, so you will have until midnight Friday to enter the contest. So if you haven't done so yet, please go ahead and go back in and find. I think we said it's a follow-up Friday. You're looking for the phrase "thick as a castle wall." Just timestamp it.
Thick as a castle wall could be from any
episode,
and we still do have the other contest going.
Yes, we do.
If you can find when we had to specifically stop the recording, that is specifically in a Follow-Up Friday. Lady Kelsey's going nuts on it. She's listening to all the Follow-Up Fridays. We hope that no one ever can find it, because we're that good at editing it. But we only have ever had to stop the podcast one time.
Yep.
If you can point it out to us, we'll send you something crazy. I don't know what, but we'll maybe like seasons 1 through 7 on DVD or something, or Blu-ray.
Man,
it's like $150 or something. But I'm that confident, because there's no one's gonna find it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I love the confidence.
Somebody's just gonna start this every single second.
Every day we're gonna get like a message from somebody talking about where it's at. Okay. So cool beans. Hopefully you guys will enter that Dragon Egg contest. Get a signed copy of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms.
Yeah. Signed by us, not Gur. So.
Yeah, signed by us. Yeah. Sorry, guys. We're actually trying to get a first edition Game of Thrones book sign for ourselves. And so once we get in good with Gur, we'll get you guys some stuff. But and second place gets a Funko Pop. So, all right, I think that's it. We are ready to move on here. So, guys, here's the thing. Sir Ezra the Watchful is going to be a little vulnerable with you today. All right?
Oh.
Yeah, I'm going to pull out I mentioned on Monday that I would kind of possibly go over a theory that I have, which, according to this crow, might be crazy. All right?
Yeah.
And if you stay tuned until the end, you'll see it's been kind of maybe debunked, maybe not debunked.
I don't know, Sir Ezra. I still see a lot of
I still have
validity
hope
in it.
for it, but you'll see why I got so crushed during my research. So I'm researching, and I've been thinking about Rhaegar's children for years, okay? So I've kind of wrote some of this down. I think I'll just read it and kind of share this with you. So, since the release of A Dance of Dragons, readers have been theorizing and speculating about a character known as young Griff. He is believed to be Aegon Targaryen's son. He is believed to be Aegon Targaryen, the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Elia Martell. So, that's been the big claim. He's coming back across the Narrow Sea. We've had people speculate that he's a Blackfire, so on, all these good things. Some readers believe that young Griff is a fraud. They think that he's been raised to believe that he is Rhaegar's son, but he's actually a Blackfire, a Valerian, or a Plum of some kind, because he has those characteristics, right? And actually, today's episode, most of the Ravens are talking about the way in which the seed is strong is referenced several times in Ravens today, I think. So who knows? We love to speculate, and we will continue to speculate on young Griff as we continue our reread of A Song of Ice and Fire. So when I first read A Dance of Dragons, I couldn't help but to wonder the same thing that everyone else was wondering. Maybe Rhaegar's children are alive, right? Okay, so that was the big thing, is that when this came out, it's like, hold on a second, we have someone who's potentially Rhaegar's son, okay? For years, during my reading, I started to think that if Aegon could survive the sack of King's Landing, then why couldn't his sister survive as well? If Varys and others conspired to smuggle one child out of King's Landing, then why wouldn't they smuggle the other child out as well? Right? I mean,
quick point here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to add some validity to it.
Go for it.
We see something like that happen with Bran and Rickon.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, so I think, when if there's one at stake, why not take the other one? You know what I mean? It's just I don't know why we would only save one child.
Right.
Could have been proximity. A lot of people have mentioned she was upstairs under her bed versus Aegon was more accessible, right? So it made sense that they would save both children and use them politically later on, right? Because you have both of them. You could even marry, Rhaenys off, right? So I started looking for other characters in A Song of Ice and Fire that were the same age as Rhaenys Targaryen, so Aegon's sister. But they had to also be Dornish. Okay, so this was the tricky part, right? A lot of times we hear Rhaenys Targaryen, and I think you might have thought to yourself, well, she would have to have silver hair, purple eyes, fair skin, all that good stuff. Not the case with Rhaenys at all, actually.
Not the case with a lot of Targaryens.
Yeah, and it really just depends. You got to look at that heritage, who were they married to, etc. So I started looking for a character that was the same age as Rhaenys and that was Dornish. I wanted to figure out if she could still be alive. Now, why Dornish? Well, Rhaenys Targaryen is born in 280 AC. She's born to Rhaegar Targaryen and Elia Martell. She does not look like a typical Targaryen. She has dark hair, dark eyes, brown skin. In the year 2000, Gur, actually, this is one of the things that he, I think is in an interview, he noted that she actually looks a lot like her mother, Elia Martell. Okay, so Dornish. When Rhaenys is presented at court in King's Landing, she's well received by her grandmother, Queen Rhaella. King Aenys, on the other hand, did not receive his granddaughter very well. He remarked that she smelled Dornish. Okay, so I need to find a Dornish girl that was born in 280 AC. Dark hair, dark eyes, brown skin. It's important to remember that when we're speculating, theorizing, or whatever, not all Targaryens have, as I said before, white skin, silver hair, purple eyes. And if we take a look at the Westerosi history, we'll actually find a couple of different people who don't have, who are Targaryens, that don't have all those different, what we call traditional Targaryen features. So let's ask a question. Are there any Targaryens married to a Dornish lady or princess, specifically maybe a Martell, in history that we can look to? And yes, there happens to be one. An alliance between House Targaryen and House Martell is actually what really helps to keep Dorne under Targaryen rule, actually. So when we take a little closer look at the marriage of King Daeron II and Mariah Martell. Okay,
Yes.
so we're about there, aren't we? In A World of Ice and Fire,
We're there.
We're there
This week,
This
yeah.
week, okay. So that's that marriage happens. It's sort of a way to kind of help bring Dorne in. Together, they had 4 sons: Baelor, Aerys, Rhaegal, and Maekar. And we know Maekar is actually Egg's father, right? So in the Dunk and Egg series.
Yeah, and Baelor Breakspear would have been king
That's right, exactly.
if Maegor hadn't, broken his
Gosh.
head wide open.
And he was actually well respected. Well, people really
Yeah.
liked him, So the eldest son, Prince Baelor, he looked very different from his brothers. He had dark hair, dark eyes like his mother. It's said, although Baelor embodied everything one could hope for in a knight, a great lord or the heir apparent, many men looked at Baelor's dark hair and eyes and muttered that he was more of a Martell than a Targaryen, as if that was a bad thing.
Right.
Baelor's other brothers, Aenys and Maekor, are both depicted as having fair to silver hair. They took after their father, King Daeron. So again, moving forward, it's important that we remember that not all Targaryens can have that silver purple hair. At the end of Maester Aemon's life, he starts to reflect on Daenerys and Rhaegar a lot more, right? We've talked about this. He reveals some interesting thoughts on the prince that was promised and so on. On his way to Old Town with Sam and Gilly, just before he passed away, Maester Aemon told Sam that the Sphinx is the riddle, not the riddler. Okay, and this is so I'm kind of putting two different theories here together, right? That got me looking into different discussions about a character named Alaris, whose nickname is the Sphinx. Westeros.org forums are full of theories and speculations about Alaris. It's widely believed that he is actually a she, and that she is Sarella Sand, the daughter of Oberyn Martell. Okay? So I looked a little closer at Sarella Sand, and I noticed that she was born the exact same year as Rhaenys Targaryen. So I couldn't believe that. All right, so I'm looking for a Dornish girl born, right, that same 280 AC. Right. There she is. So I was pumped, looking for that female character. Happened. Sarella fit perfectly. She was even a bastard daughter of Oberyn Martell. That could be something that's made up, or we have a lot of people claiming this person or that person. There could be more to that. You know what I'm saying? Especially if he's trying to hide her. If she was someone who would have been a valuable target, and he wanted to possibly, keep her safe, he would claim her as a bastard.
Right.
Right. Okay. Not much was known about her mother.
And
yeah.
I have some. When you finish,
okay.
I have something huge
Okay,
to
good.
add to that I
Good.
just thought of. Because I actually, real quick,
Yeah.
I haven't even. Sarah hasn't. I have not. I know he's been working on this theory, but I haven't heard it. This is the first time I'm actually.
This is the first time you heard it. Yeah, exactly. So, and I'm almost done. So this is basically, you get right to the point here, because I get crushed in a second.
I don't know.
Well, maybe not.
I think I just fixed it for you.
Okay, so not much was known about her mother. Oberyn had numerous bastards, so why not one more? It turns out that Sarella knows a surprising amount of recent Targaryen history, that is said in the books. And if she is actually Alaris at the Citadel, then she's ambitious and totally up to something. She's a player in this Game of Thrones. So I was ready to ask the question, is Sarella Sand actually Rhaenys Targaryen? That's where I was ready to go. I'm ready to say that she is. I was ready to put it all out there. And then I came across this fan question that Gur answered in 2000. I'll read it to you. I still kind of believe there's a chance here. But a fan asked, I was wondering if you could answer or take the fifth. One teeny little question I've been dying to ask for the past year. Are Aegon and Rhaenys, Elia's children, well and truly dead? So are they actually truly dead? And this is what Gur said. I didn't actually hear him. It's just what's written in So Spake Gur. All I have to say is that there is absolutely no doubt that little Princess Rhaenys was dragged from beneath her father's bed and slain. And when I heard him say that, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Because I was so close, to possibly... Because is he just throwing people off? Or
he also continues to say that, remember, Jon Snow's dead.
Yes, I know. Right, yeah. So, I mean...
But let me propose something to you here that I just thought of.
Sure.
So when Oberyn Martell comes, and you see it a lot. It's a little bit more in the show you see just the fight in the mountain. I mean, it still happens in the book, but it just is a little more slammed into your idea.
Right.
You killed her, you raped her, the whole thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Oberyn Martell and Dorne has never really bent the knee. Even still, they're kind of their own thing. Yeah, they're part of the Seven Kingdoms, but not really.
Yeah, they're very standoffish.
So, if you're Varys and you're trying to prop up this either false Aegon or the actual Aegon, and have the Targaryens come back and take the throne, who would be your best ally?
Yeah.
Dorne. So what if you have someone who is actually Dornish and a Targaryen?
Yeah.
Brother, sister, Mary, and then she's been raised, so she is part of that Dornish
culture
family. She's a Martell.
Yeah.
Now the Dornish already don't like, the Lannisters.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe that is their idea, was to marry him to
her,
Rhaenys,
or
who is Aurelia. Yeah.
Yeah, who
Sarella
knows?
Saint,
I don't know if in my theory as I was coming up with
think
it.
about this. If Oberyn is raising her as his daughter, I mean, think about this. Eddard Stark is potentially raising Jon Snow as his son.
Exactly.
So you have that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you'd have three people raising 3 heads of the dragon. You could have Jon, Rhaenys,
and
Aegon,
Sarella. Yeah.
Sarella, and oh gosh, sorry. Just trying to piece it all together here. Anyway, so if Oberyn Martell would have to look at her every day and think about his sister,
because his sister
killed,
did
just like how Eddard Stark
thinks about his.
Right. There's a lot of times where he's talking or thinking about Jon, and then suddenly
drifts into
Lyanna.
Yeah, I get that for sure, and that could cause this upset as a brother who probably loved his sister, cared about her. It's one of those things like, you can't because to even to tell her who she is, it could be risking her life.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I was just looking for a similar parallel between like the Jon Snow situation and Rhaenys Targaryen. So if there are other options out there, I would love for people to let me know. But, again, born in 280 AC, and that's what I went off the wiki, and I went off of a couple different other places where it was mentioned that she was brought to court. Yeah, I don't know. It's
now there
tough.
was another character we thought it could be.
Yeah, who was that? Oh. Yeah.
I don't know if you're ready to.
Oh no, not yet. You mean up north?
Yeah.
Yeah, not yet. Yeah. Because it kind of yeah. We'll see about that one. I'm not sure, but no, I mean it's just interesting to me. But when he says this, I'm like, "Grr, really?" And he's putting this one to bed, sort of. So I kind of have to. And it's one of those things like. You wouldn't have found evidence against it, really. Well, you can find some evidence against this theory in the books, maybe. But when he comes right out and says this, I was like, "What?" Because I was looking for, thoughts on. I was looking for Gur's thoughts on Aegon's. Rhaegar's children, and I just was like, came across that, and I'm like, so the moral of the story here is: be careful when you speculate. Be ready for anything. Never let your guard down until the author of the series puts it to rest.
Yeah,
no, I'm just kidding. But, actually, just let your imagination run wild. It's fun. I had so much fun digging into it. And then, it's just a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
So there you go. There's Sir Ezra the Watchful throwing it out there to you guys. If you have other thoughts, or maybe that sprung something in your mind, you could think about, that character.
Even Sir Ezra's wild and crazy theories we'll read.
That's right.
Yeah. So. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and head on here to one from Sam the Hammer, writing to us once again. Sir Matt and Sir Ezra just wanted to give you thoughts on supporting teams in other countries. We're still searching for a.
We have to hustle on that too.
We do. Everyone's kind of pulling us every way here. In the mid-90s, I decided to choose an American football team to support. The Dolphins were a big team over here, but I didn't want to choose the most obvious team, so I decided to pick a city that I felt some affinity to and support their teams across all American sports. My only knowledge of American cities came from TV, so the decision was largely based on my favorite shows at the time. Seattle and Boston were strong contenders, but I eventually went with Philadelphia. He's going with the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah, Fresh Prince.
Boston and Seattle. I'm trying to think of shows that are from there. Seattle's Frasier, which is my favorite show of all time, is Seattle. Boston is also Cheers, which is like the previous.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so it could be that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, since then I followed the Eagles, Sixers, Flyers, and Phillies. It makes this year's Super Bowl all the more satisfying given the limited success we've had over the last 20-odd years. When choosing your football team, I'd pick with someone with the potential to grow to be successful.
Okay.
Newcastle, Everton, who were initially kind of leaning towards.
Yeah.
West Ham, and now Wolverhampton Wanderers, the Wolves, are not considered among the elite, but are well supported and have decent size stadiums. This tends to dictate income and therefore long-term success in English leagues. The quality of owners varies, but this is Transit. Oh, sorry.
Yep.
And is similar to American sports. They all have their own character and interesting histories and are worth reading up on.
Yeah.
But if you still can't make up your mind, here's an article comparing all the Premier League teams to Game of Thrones characters.
Whoa.
Maybe you can just pick your favorite character. It's a year out of date, but most of the teams are the same. So I'm going to pull this up here and kind of sift through, and I'm sure some of our English friends can kind of tell us. Let's see here. We have Premier League team, Tottenham, Sir Davos, the Onion Knight.
Really?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
He's like, I've never been much of a fighter. This says he's trending upwards here. Watford, Gendry. We have says, I don't know, some of these teams I don't know. It says, despite being of minimal importance to the plot so far, we reckon these strong, likable boneheads are about to play a key part. Says vanishing for a couple seasons, so I'm guessing that team, maybe kind of fell off for a bit. West Brom, Varys the Spider, West Ham the Hound.
Okay, you like the Hound?
I do like the Hound, yeah.
And West Ham's been brought up several times to us.
West Ham has been, it says they're kind of like a rogue type character. It says they're just busy picking fights to come up with any long-term strategy. So,
oh wow,
yeah. So so maybe some of our English listeners can send us and tell us their thoughts on if that kind of goes along with some of those teams.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to let you read this one. This is a doozy.
Yeah, for sure. This is Sir Gibbs again has hit us up. Sir Gibbs the Inquisitive. So let me see here. Let's see what he says. There are many theories I have heard on your cast of who could be Jon Snow's biological parents, and his possible name in the books. A popular theory I have heard on the show proposed is that Lyanna and Rhaegar are not his parents. Okay, I love entertaining these thoughts and theories, shadowed in mystery. I, however, would like to offer up why the standing illustration brought to light in the show will most likely be the way it plays out in the books. And here is why I see this way. Okay, so making the case, I guess, that that Jon is R+L equals J. Is that what you're getting, Sir Matt, from this?
Yep.
Okay, all right. So number one, Ned Stark is all about duty, honor, and responsibility. His word means more than its weight in gold, not just to the north, but to the entire Seven Kingdoms. This is why, in my mind, that Cersei asked him to admit his crimes and asked to take the black. With this in mind, follow along with my logical Vulcan rant. Okay, all right, we will.
Okay.
In the show, Ned Stark gives his word and promises his dear sister to protect her son and keep him safe. Knowing he cannot go back on his word, he fails to give any detail on this estranged woman who gave birth to his bastard. He does this for a very specific intention. Tell the one lie and tell the one lie and do not indulge or say anything further. Okay. This prevents him from getting caught in the lie and losing his life and the life of his Targaryen nephew. Nephew, by the way. Okay. He is, in fact, half Stark and a member of the Wolf family, too. The lone wolf dies, but the pack survives. Very true. He tells his loving wife of his deeds, knowing that the lie would always haunt their marriage. But he did so to protect their entire family. And that makes sense. So, he's telling Catelyn that he's lying, saying this is his bastard.
Right.
We've heard a lot of people talk about this, and that, to keep everybody safe, to keep Jon safe, etc. His only other lie he has told, was at the headsman's block. Okay, so he's asked to lie, knowing it would sound more true from his own lips, and it cost him his head to prevent him from telling the truth. So, again, he's given that. He's talking about at the time in which, he's to confess his sins, proclaim that Joffrey is the one true king, and to give up all this craziness. You know what I mean? All right. So watching season 7 the other night, and I caught a line Jon says in the Dragon Pit after telling Cersei he already had pledged himself to House Targaryen. I'm not going to swear an oath I can't uphold. Talk about my father if you want. Tell me that's the attitude that got him killed, but when enough people make false promises, words stop meaning anything. Then there are no more answers, only better and better lies. This quote is the embodiment of what his father taught him growing up. Okay, and I think that's true. Yeah. Jon's words actually carry a lot of weight, even to a crazy and controlling queen like Cersei. This is when I actually feel as if Cersei realized she will not keep the throne for very long and panicked. Cersei exits stage left. My point is duty, honor, responsibility, and honesty is what made the Starks who they are or were and what they stand for. So if Jon's parents are not Lyanna and Rhaegar, then why would Ned risk everything for this secret? That's not Ned's way. He put his family through this turmoil to save his only sister's child, and as we know from the show, true king to all Westeros. All right, yeah. All of how Jon was raised was by no better man than. So he's raised by no better man to groom him to one day be king. That being Eddard Stark, right? Mm-hmm. This I know is not in line with outside the box thinking for theories for the show, but I thought I would do a little honor for the extremely hard work and wizard of an author's hard work. Griff spent a great many years developing the characters of Jon and Ned. Both characters would not be as honorable if Jon's parents are not Rhaegar and Lyanna. I am digging this world of your podcast and forever bend the knee to you, sirs. Thank you, your awesome listeners, for their engaging in discussion with the World of Ice and Fire. Sir Gibbs. Mm-hmm. So, we've had people, we've had Ravens. We ourselves have discussed the idea that that R+L equals J, and that is the way it's going to be, and that's the way it's been kind of laid out there in the show. Yeah, and I think Sir Gibbs is kind of making the case that's probably how it's going to be in the book.
That's what I feel is most likely.
And that, a lot of people are kind of going with that. I think
people have called me a Targaryen loyalist.
They have. They have.
And it's because I believe that my favorite character, Jon Snow, is a Targaryen.
Okay. Yeah.
Just mainly the reason.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are people who believe that child that Lyanna and, as I said before, Rhaegar had is young Griff. There are people who believe Jon Snow is Ashara Dane's, child. Yeah. And so on. So we actually have another Raven here in just a little bit that kind of follows up on all these thoughts that Sir Gibbs has just laid out for us, too. So we can kind of, talk about that. But first, it's time for trivia.
It is. All right, here we go. Trivia for this week. You can give me the basic answer. But I'm going to need, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be as detailed as possible, but pretty simple. What is the sigil of House Dondarrion?
Yeah.
Sir Ezra's favorite character.
Beric Dondarrion. Beric Dondarrion is...
Beric Dondarrion, however you pronounce it. So.
Yeah. Is a boss. I love him to death, and I, love reading about him.
Love him to death multiple times.
That's true. Multiple times I love him to death, and he rises again. Yeah. So, okay, continuing on. So with Sir Gibbs's line of thought there. So the next one, maybe we can split this up. We can read this in sections. So this is going to be one of our last Ravens today, and then we'll have a big discussion after this one. So This is from Drew Hosser, who has sent us like a 4-point Raven here. So, good day, sirs. I've been listening for a while now and finally have a few crazy ideas to throw out there. Okay.
You've worn off on me.
You've worn
It
off on me.
happens.
Good. That's good. Yeah. A quick backstory on my getting into A Song of Ice and Fire. I started watching the show last July for the first time after my good friend finally talked me into it. Kudos to that friend. And ended up getting caught up in all of the season 2. I'm sorry. And ended getting caught up with all the season 2 shows before the season 7 finale. Yeah. After that, I began going down wiki rabbit holes and finally bought the books back in November, and I'm currently in for Feast of Crows. Okay. Also, a little side note: I'm from down in Kentucky. Nice. Yeah. That side of Cincinnati. So it's nice to listen to people from Columbus. Awesome. We're like neighbors.
Yeah.
That's great.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, here we go. Diving into some bloodline theories. All right.
Oof.
Yeah. Number 1, Ashara Dane had a child who lived. That child was taken by Varys for a noble cause. Who would have known her from when she was at court? So Varys knows her at court, takes her child for a noble cause. I believe that the child is either young Griff / Aegon, or he is the child, switched with Aegon when Aegon was sent to Essos. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Whether her child was murdered or shipped across the world, I believe either instance could have caused her to take her own life.
That is a very good point. Like maybe Lyanna told Ned, and then that would mean that she could still have Jon, and she knew that Aegon had to go too.
Yeah, so exactly.
And Rhaenys is, Sarella Sand, so.
Right, yeah. So yeah, that's that. We've had this happen before where babies have been switched.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You have it happen in, spoilers to this guy, kind of happens in Dance of Dragons.
Yeah. Yep. It does. Yeah. So let's see here. Whether her child was murdered or shipped across the world, I believe that in this instance it could have caused her to take her own life. As for the father of the child, I think it could be Aerys, the Mad King. Okay, who could have forced himself on Ashara at the tourney at Harrenhal, or Brandon Stark. And this is where I was telling Sir Matt before. I've not heard people mention Brandon Stark, who she crossed paths with, but it seems a little more murky and fits my second theory better. However, I think it works better to have him as a bastard of the king and therefore a Blackfire and also a Dane, hopefully bringing the Sword of the Morning mantle back into play. Okay, so that's interesting. Ashara Dane has a child, who's taken by Varys for this noble cause. That would be interesting. And that child possibly being it would be a bastard child then, right?
Right.
I mean, so it does say at one point that she left, Elia Martell's service, and why would she leave her service? But maybe for, to get married is what people have speculated.
And the idea of the Sword of the Morning, which kind of ties into the whole Lightbringer prophecy theory idea, Azor Ahai.
Yeah, for sure.
And there is something about the why did Ashara Dane jump into the sea?
Yeah, why did she kill herself?
And is Ashara Dane... now I'm blanking on her name. The Septa that's with Tyrion.
Yeah, with young Griff as well. Yeah, I can't remember her name either.
I know. I read her name last week. It's like I starts with an L or something. I can't remember. But anyway, Tyrion's looking at her, and
it's not Mordain, is it?
No. Septa Mordain is the.
Oh yeah, okay, that's right.
The Maester or the Septa that ends up dying. She's with Sansa.
That's right. That's right.
Because we just read it. That's why you're thinking about it.
I
can't remember her name, but she's on the boat with Tyrion, and Tyrion sees her bathing, and he's like, "Oh,
yeah, she's beautiful."
He's like, "Oh, do you want to talk to her?" He's like, "No, I want to."
Oh, yeah, he does. Yeah. So, anyways, go ahead and read the next one there, sir, man. I'll look up who that sept is.
Okay. What? Lamore, yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
What if Ashara's son looked less like a Dane and more like his father, Brandon Stark? When Ned sees this, he thinks that Starfall is no place to raise a son of the North and takes the bastard of Brandon Stark back to Winterfell, with him becoming Jon Snow. And rather than sully his brother's name with the news of a bastard, Ned chooses to bear the burden. Which actually is really interesting because he does kind of think, yes, it always comes back to Brandon. When he's talking to Catelyn and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He would have wanted to protect Brandon's memory, especially in Catelyn's eyes and in the eyes of his children. However, where would that leave Rhaegar and Lyanna's child? I believe that he would be Aegon / young Griff. Gur tells us the seed is strong, so Rhaegar's seed could lead to Jon's unmistakable Stark looks.
Yeah, so the question is, so could Rhaegar's seed lead to Jon's unmistakable Stark looks? That makes a lot of sense if the seed, being the male seed, is gonna. That's a good point. We just talked about that with right. How could that happen? Now, the opposite of that is we mentioned Baelor Breakspear, for example.
And that the Targaryens sometimes their seed is actually kind of weak.
Yeah.
And then they talk about how Lyanna had the wolf's blood in her, and she's so wild, and that would explain maybe why Jon is.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like her seed was so strong, or not her seed, but her,
yeah,
it overrides Rhaegar's.
For sure. So in theory number 2 here, we're saying that Brandon Stark is the father of Jon Snow.
Yeah. That's an interesting thought. I had not thought about that.
Yeah, it is interesting, actually. So, okay, let's continue on. Number 3. As for a general question surrounding Lyanna's death and childbirth, the other major character that we know about, or that I recall, experiencing complications with their childbirth is Joanna Lannister with Tyrion, and Rhaella Targaryen with Daenerys. Okay, so true, they both.
Yeah, which is where a lot of people think that, the 3 heads of the dragon, Jon, Dany, Tyrion, also kind of like the 3 main characters.
Right.
Could potentially all 3 be dragon riders. Tyrion has the dragon dreams.
Right, true. So
is that they could just and that's where that the Mad King forcing himself on Joanna kind of comes in. That would make Tyrion a Targaryen. That would not make them, however, all 3 siblings. It would make Tyrion and Daenerys Jon's aunt and uncle.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So actually, Drew goes on to kind of mention, with these parallels, perhaps that points to Tyrion as a Targaryen, something I don't necessarily want to happen or think will happen, but it is odd that these 3 instances are pointed out time and time again, kind of driven home that they, died in childbirth. Maybe the seed is too strong for those mothers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, gosh, what's her name? Rhaella Targaryen had so many kids, and a lot of them died.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She had a ton of miscarriages.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she did. So, yeah. So the seed's either too strong or it's not strong enough.
Well, it's Mad King, so it's probably all jacked up.
It's all jacked up, yeah. So, okay, I like this. Okay, on to number 4. On to Mance Rayder, actually. So he obviously feels drawn to Winterfell, and being knowledgeable of the North, it could be general interest. However, I wonder if he is either a descendant of Bael the Bard's bastard with the Stark daughter, right? So there's a story there.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, giving him the blood of the Starks. It is said that Bael's son, who became legitimized to be a Stark, to keep the line alive, brought his head back to Winterfell after killing the king beyond the wall on his attack south. And actually, Sir Matt, if you can pull up on the wiki, that whole story if you want to. There, maybe that Stark buried his father, Bael in the Crypts, whose presence there is drawing Mance to Winterfell. So maybe that's what's luring him to go. He goes to check out the king. Maybe he's been at Winterfell's halls
the Bael
before.
The Bael the Bard story. I have it pulled up.
Yep.
So whenever you're ready.
Okay. And Mance was born as a wildling bastard to a son of that legitimized Stark who was serving on the wall. So we've heard that that Mance's mother was a wildling and that his father was a crow. Man of the Night's Watch. Mm-hmm. So could that man have been someone who was a Stark descended from that legitimized Stark line? This would make Jon and Mance relatives, and if Mance is aware of that fact, as I think he is, he sees himself in Jon, and that explains the trust he inexplicably has in Jon, despite several protests from other free folk. I think that wraps up my thoughts for now. I just wanted to share these and see if you guys had any thoughts on them. Thanks for the podcast and the great work. Keep it up, Drew. Wow.
Here, let me go ahead and read the Bael the Bard story.
According
to free folk legend, Lord Brandon Stark, the Liege of the North, once called Bael a coward. To take revenge for this affront and prove his courage, Bael climbed the wall, took the King's Road, and entered Winterfell under the guise of a singer named Sigric of Skagos. Sounds similar to Mance Rayder. There he sang until midnight for the Lord. Impressed by his skills as a singer, Lord Stark asked Bale what he wanted as a reward, but he requested only the most beautiful flower blooming in Winterfell's garden. As the blue winter roses were just blooming, Brandon Stark presented him with one. The following morning, the maiden daughter of Lord Stark had disappeared. His only child, and in her bed was the blue winter rose. Lord Brandon sent the members of the Night's Watch looking for them beyond the wall, but they never found Bale or the girl. The Stark line was on the verge of extinction when one day the girl was back in her room, holding in her arms an infant. They had actually never left Winterfell, staying hidden in the crypts. Bale's bastard with Brandon's daughter became the new Lord Stark. 30 years later, Bale was king beyond the wall, and led the Wildlings army south, and he had to fight his own son at the Frozen Ford. There, incapable of killing his own blood, he let himself be killed by Lord Stark. His son brought Bale's head back to Winterfell, and his mother, who loved the bard, seeing the trophy, killed herself by leaping from the top of a tower. The son was eventually slain by the Boltons.
Yeah. So
sounds like there's a lot of parallels and things that could similarly happen. You've got the blue winter rose, which is a tie to Lyanna. You've got Bale climbing over the wall, which sounds like Mance Rayder and like coming up to there. You have the Stark line on the verge of extinction, maybe the Targaryen line verge of extinction with Jon Snow, same type of thing, being murdered by the Boltons. You know, you never know. We kind of thought Jon could die, be raised again, a third time. And he says don't in the show. Could happen the same way in the books. I don't know.
Yeah, there's some interesting parallels and connections to be made there. So, Drew, I mean, honestly, good points. I think my favorite one there is the idea that I mean, not much is said about her interactions between the Stark boys. I think when she does meet Ned, she does have this interaction with him and Brandon, right? I mean, so I don't really know. Maybe something could have happened there, but between them, also the idea that Varys, takes a child from her, and that child is either murdered or shipped across the world, causing her to take her own life is very interesting. So, I don't know. There's a lot there, so I think that's pretty neat. Okay. Any other thoughts on that, Sir Matt?
No, but that is very, very good. It's
well thought out.
Very well thought out. Both of those theories, and just kind of like the parentage and just different ideas and opinions on who potentially Jon's parents could be and stuff like that. Like, I definitely never thought of Brandon Stark.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the idea, the difference between that Raven, and like Sir Gibbs kind of saying that it's pretty, in his mind, straightforward that it is R+L = J. Right. And I think in a lot of people's minds, it is. And you and I really try to, get on the edge of the map there and really look for, or the edge of the text and see what we can find, try to make these connections in ways that it's a bit of a stretch sometimes. So I like to see people kind of, take something, or when the author leaves room, for you to speculate, then, maybe that's what the room that's left there is intentional because he's going to fill it in later. Yeah. Again, because we've got 2 more books coming. So, I like the idea of just the Danes playing this role. I've said this often, that the Sword of the Morning coming back into play, in some regard. So I don't know how that's going to work out, but I could see that happening. And here's something I just kind of thought of. Well, never mind. They're not as the Danes. You're looking at bloodlines and thinking about how their appearances, right? You've got the 3 different types of Dornishmen, right? Yeah, they're more of they look closer to what the rest of the realm or whatever, but still they're in Dorne. Yeah. So there's that whole piece. Okay, do we have any more Ravens?
That is it for this week.
Okay, wow, that's kind of a shorter week for us, but yeah, any other random thoughts? I mean, everything you heard there, Sir Matt, all the bloodlines, all the connections.
Yeah, and the idea, I'm also trying to, the idea of Ashara Dane and the jumping off the cliff is something, because we assume that it's just because she finds out Arthur Dane's been slain.
Mm-hmm.
But it could be so much more than that. That's like another piece to the story.
Yeah.
That always intrigues me, and that she throws Dawn down. Dawn goes missing.
Mm-hmm.
Same kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's just interesting that he highlights that Ashara did that.
Right.
When
it's like the one piece of the puzzle I always kind of forget about. They're like, oh yeah, it's just Eddard goes and tells her.
Yeah, it makes a personal journey there. Yeah. It's just why take the time to mention that? I think every line is intentional. Gerb puts them in there for a reason. So there's a reason why.
Did he take Jon Snow with him? Little baby Jon Snow with him?
Well, it depends on it depends on what
because that's one thing.
Okay. I thought something just kind of okay. So here we go. So if Lyanna and Rhaegar have a child, okay,
right.
and that child maybe it could come down to how they look, right? Maybe we've often thought that if Ned and Ashara got together, that what would that child look like, and would there be a need to swap the two? Lyanna's baby for Ashara's, etc. And then one is sent with Ashara, and Varys, to Essos and raised as young Griff, and the other one is taken to Winterfell and raised as Jon Snow, type of thing. So that's something to think about. I don't not putting anything out there concretely. I'm just asking the question. Is there some more possibilities there?
Yeah.
So. And again, we're throwing an extra child in there, kind of saying that, with Ashara and kind of talking about the possibility that she could have a child as well, kind of muddies things up a little bit. But I don't know. I mean, when young Griff comes back into the picture, it's either, people normally go to it's Rhaegar's son, or it's from his first marriage with Elia Martell or Lyanna Stark,
right?
Or is it somebody else now?
I don't know. Gosh, there's so many.
So, all right. Well, I think this week we're going to leave it a little short here. More to think about, more to dwell on. Appreciate Drew and Sir Gibbs and Sam the Hammer hitting us up this week, and I appreciate you hanging in there listening to my Rhaenys Targaryen theory. If you guys have any thoughts on that, or you guys yourselves speculate more on this.
And continue to send us your stories, how you got into the series.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, send us your origin story, and we've been reading those on the main show. And we'll read, if we have extra, which we do, we have plenty. We'll read those here on Follow Up Friday. Another thing that I was going to mention too. The Ghost, by the way, this week has sent me a Raven. We've held off on that till next week because it is so good, and I am still studying up on that. I forgot to mention that at the top of the show. But one thing that I like as you read these things, and this is just an encouragement. I'm a teacher, so I kind of sometimes, not that I'm assigning homework, but I love for my students to provide textual evidence.
Yeah.
So one thing that helps Sir Matt and I, as we prep for the show, if you guys can send in quotes from the book, or it's referenced in Arya 3 of A Storm of Swords or whatever, that is super helpful, because then we can dive into where we kind of can get inside of your head and think about where you're at in the text, and that really helps. Now, if it's just show based, that's totally fine. Let us know what season, which episodes you're thinking, give us some context, and we'll run wild with you on the show theories.
Yeah, and real quick, just something I want to point out here, Sir Ezra.
Yeah,
I was doing some reading here while we were talking about continuing on this Bale the Bard thing.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. It says it talks about the timeline of this legend, because it's like, to break it down, it specifically mentions like the King's Road and things like that. So it would have had to have been taken place like after, after Jaehaerys the First and stuff like that. And so it's just interesting.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, because it was after the King's Road, and there was some news. We'll talk about this more in the main episode that did come out of San Diego Comic-Con. We had talked about the timeline that was kind of shown.
Yeah,
And
for Fire and Blood.
For Fire and Blood.
Yep.
And the timeline is because Fire and Blood is going to go up to Aegon the Third. So it lists Viserys as Prince Viserys, not King Viserys.
Yeah.
So I don't know, just reading this and kind of thinking about that we had seen that as well is just interesting. Just we always talk about point of view and some of the things these maesters speculate on.
Well, yeah, and that's why I felt Friday is so fun. I've said it time and time again. Is that, and what you had just told me, not to spoil everything for the main show, but what have you? The idea that this could be written in a different
time period.
Yeah, and it's not
like World of Ice and Fire is written present day, looking back at old documents.
Yeah, looking at old.
This is like
primary sources, and then
this is like a primary source because it's being written at the time.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So the dates and stuff are kind of incomplete. You have a World of Ice and Fire as the overarching guide, so it's neat to get that perspective.
Yeah.
So really cool.
Yeah. So.
All right, guys. Well, hey, thanks again. Make sure you send all those ravens to btkcast at gmail.com. Don't let the crows get you down. Send those ravens. We are happy to have them. So.
All right, guys. In the words of House Greyjoy, we do not sow.